My millionaire grandfather discovered me and my little girl living homeless beneath a bridge. I was stunned. My dad had always claimed he was dead. He brought us to his luxurious mansion, then uncovered a secret about my father that destroyed everything I believed. I thought losing my wife, my home, and being kicked out by my own parents with my 8-month-old daughter was the worst thing that could ever happen. We were homeless, desperate, until one freezing night under a bridge, a stranger in an expensive suit appeared, claiming to be my grandfather, a man I'd believed dead my entire life. What happened next completely shattered my world, in the most unexpected way possible. My name is Ronald Hole. I'm 31 years old, and just a few short months ago, my life was a picture of modest stability. I had a small home, a beautiful wife named Melissa, and our daughter, Cameron, who was truly my entire world. Now, all of that feels like a distant dream, fading like smoke in the wind. Every morning, I'd drag myself out of bed at 5 a.m., before the first hint of dawn, my shoulders aching from another brutal day at the steel factory. The deafening roar of machinery, the acrid scent of burning metal, the sweat stinging my eyes, that was my daily grind. But I didn't complain. I worked for Melissa, for Cameron's bright smile when I held her close, for the gentle love I thought I saw in Melissa's eyes. Our home was just a small apartment, stained walls and worn furniture, but it was ours. My factory wages covered the rent, Cameron's milk, and kept a roof over our heads. Melissa used to be an office clerk, but after Cameron was born, she decided to stay home. I told myself that's what a man does, provides for his family, no matter how tough it gets. "Are you okay, Ron?" Melissa would ask some evenings, as I slumped into a chair, my hands still smelling of machine oil. I'd smile, nod. "I'm fine. As long as you and Cameron are happy, I can handle anything." But I missed it, or maybe I chose to miss it. The way her eyes no longer held that familiar warmth. Her smiles became forced. Our conversations, shorter. Some nights, coming home late, I'd find her alone in the living room, glued to her phone, her fingers flying across the screen, almost as if she was trying to hide something. "Who's that?" I'd ask, trying to keep my voice light. "Just an old friend," she'd reply too quickly, snapping the screen off. I pushed it down. Melissa was my wife, the mother of my child. She wouldn't hurt our family. But deep down, a tiny crack was forming, widening each day, and I had no idea how to fix it. Cameron was my light, my holy universe. At 8 months old, with her chubby cheeks and big, innocent eyes, she saw only me. Every time I held her, my exhaustion melted away. "You're my treasure," I'd whisper, as she'd grab my finger and giggle. Those moments made me forget the mounting bills, the endless overtime, Melissa's distant gaze. But the doubt grew. One evening, I came home early and caught Melissa fumbling, shoving her phone into her pocket. She flinched when she saw me, panic flashing in her eyes. "Why are you so nervous?" I asked, struggling to stay calm. "It's nothing," she stammered, her voice trembling. My instinct screamed. A storm was brewing on the horizon, and it hit faster than I could ever have imagined. It was a Saturday. I'd taken the day off to be with Cameron. Melissa said she needed to meet a friend. "Just grabbing coffee, don't worry," she said, but her eyes wouldn't meet mine. I nodded, holding Cameron, watching her walk out, her purse swinging. My heart tightened. That night, she came home late. Cameron was asleep in her crib. When Melissa walked in, I caught a faint whiff of unfamiliar perfume. "Where were you all day?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. She just mumbled something about an old colleague. I wanted to believe her, but my heart was screaming the truth. The next day, I did something I never thought I'd do. While she was in the shower, I checked her phone. A few minutes scrolling through her messages shattered my world into a million pieces. The words on the screen cut like knives. "I miss you. Meet again tonight. I'll tell Ron I'm seeing a friend." And then dozens more, sweet, intimate, from a man I didn't know. Melissa had betrayed me. My hands trembled, the phone slipping from my grasp, clattering to the floor. When she stepped out, she saw me, then the phone. Her face went bone-white. "Ron." She stammered. "Who is he, Melissa?" My voice wasn't just anger, it was pure, raw pain. "Who is he that you could do this to me?" "To Cameron?" She looked up, her eyes unreadable. "Regret? Resolve?" "Ron," she said, her voice chillingly calm. "We need to talk." No long explanations, no beating around the bush. She'd reconnected with Brian, an old colleague. "We were just talking at first," she said, but her voice faltered as she described the coffee dates stretching into evenings, the messages turning into declarations of love. "He makes me feel alive, Ron. I'm sorry, but I can't keep living like this." I stood there, frozen. "Living like this, Melissa?" My voice was barely a tremor. "Living with me? With Cameron? With our family? What is it you can't stand?" She turned away, her shoulders trembling. "I'm not happy," she finally said, her voice flat, like she was reading a script. "I tried, but I can't. I want a divorce." The word divorce hit me like a sledgehammer. I wanted to scream, to beg her, for Cameron, for the years we'd spent together. But I just stood there, watching the woman I loved become a complete stranger. "What about Cameron?" I choked out. "She's only 8 months old, Melissa. What are you going to do about her?" Her silence was a cruel answer. "I can't take care of her," she said after a long pause, her voice cold as ice. "You keep her, Ron. I need a new life." I don't remember what I said next. Maybe nothing. All I know is that when Melissa walked out, pulling a small suitcase behind her, it felt like the world collapsed beneath my feet. She didn't look back. Not once. The door slammed shut, and I was left alone with my baby girl and a heart utterly shattered. The days that followed passed in a fog. I still went to work, stood by the production line, but my mind was adrift. The roar of the machines couldn't drown out the questions. Why did she do this? What did I do wrong? How will I raise Cameron alone? Melissa wasted no time. A week later, a court summons. She'd filed for divorce. I had no strength to fight. The court was swift, unforgiving. They divided our assets, a fancy term for the tiny apartment we'd slaved to pay off, and the meager savings I'd scraped together for Cameron. That apartment, however run down, was everything I'd been proud of. A home I'd built with sweat and late-night shifts. The court ordered it sold. I couldn't afford to buy out Melissa's share. It all happened dizzyingly fast. Appraisers came. A for-sale sign went up. I watched the apartment where Cameron was born, where I thought we'd build a forever home, sold off for a pittance. On the day they came to clear out the furniture, I stood in a corner, holding Cameron. She babbled, her tiny hands clutching my shirt, as if sensing her father's pain. I watched our life packed away. The sofa where I'd held her. The kitchen table where Melissa used to cook. The bed where we'd once dreamed of a future. All gone. I got half the money from the sale, but it was barely anything after paying off the bank. Melissa took her share and vanished. Rumor had it she'd moved to Indianapolis with Brian. She never called, never asked about Cameron. She left us behind, as if we'd never existed. I tried to stay strong for Cameron. She was the only reason I didn't fall apart. Every morning, I'd look into her clear, innocent eyes and tell myself I had to be strong. But I was breaking. I'd lost my wife, my home, and my faith in everything I thought would last forever. I had no choice but to turn to my parents. "Dad, I need help," I said, my voice thick with shame and desperation. Melissa left. "It's just me and Cameron now. I don't know what to do." A long, agonizing silence stretched. I thought he'd refuse. Then, his voice, dry and curt, "Come back here. Stay with us for now. But you'll need to contribute to living expenses. We're not exactly flush with money." I let out a breath, though my heart still felt heavy. At least family would offer refuge. I packed our few remaining belongings, a bag of my clothes, a few outfits for Cameron, her old stuffed bear. I held her close, stepped out of the now empty apartment, and caught a bus to my parents' house. As the bus pulled away, I felt like a colossal failure. The apartment, my dream, was gone. The money, almost gone. "I'll figure it out, Cameron. I promise," I whispered, but deep down, I didn't know how. My parents' house sat on the edge of town, a weathered two-story home with faded shingles and a front yard overrun with weeds. I stood at the door, holding Cameron, my heart pounding with dread. I didn't want to be here, didn't want to face their judgmental stares. But I had no other choice. My mother, Denise, opened the door. Her gaze swept me up and down. "Come in, Ron," she said, devoid of warmth. "But don't make noise. Your father's resting." I carried Cameron up to my old room. It was still there, but not as I remembered it. A thin layer of dust coated the floor. The bed was covered with an old sheet, and the corner was stuffed with random cardboard boxes. "This room hasn't been used in a while. Clean it yourself," my mother said, her tone flat. I swallowed hard, looking at the room that once held my childhood dreams, now cold, dusty, forgotten. The house had only 3 bedrooms. My parents' was the largest. Derek's, my younger brother's, was tidy, with a fresh mattress and his personal belongings untouched. He and his wife visited often. Then there was mine, little more than a storage closet. The favoritism stabbed at my heart from the very first moment. But I stayed silent. I just needed a place for Cameron. I cleaned the room, spread a new blanket I'd bought, set up Cameron's crib. "This used to be our room," I whispered to her, holding her close. She babbled, grabbing my finger, and I turned away to hide my tears, my profound sense of failure. My father, Kenneth, a harsh, retired railroad worker, spoke little, but every word cut like a knife. "You need to pay for expenses, Ron," he declared on my first day. "We can't afford to feed 2 extra mouths. And keep it quiet. Don't let Cameron's crying disturb us." I nodded, not daring to argue. I knew they had their own struggles, but the fact they preserved Derek's room like a museum while mine gathered dust made their favoritism painfully clear. Derek, my golden child younger brother, had been sent to college while I worked early. Now, when I needed help most, they still prioritized him. As if I wasn't worth as much. I went back to the steel factory, working like a machine, taking night shifts to make ends meet. Each day, I left before dawn, leaving Cameron with a kind neighbor for a small fee. Amidst the roar and sweat, my mind was always with Cameron. I feared she'd go hungry, get sick, that I wouldn't be able to provide. My wages, after childcare and giving my parents their share, left me with almost nothing. But I gritted my teeth and pushed through. For Cameron. For the hope of getting us out of a house where love seemed reserved only for the successful. But my parents made nothing easier. My mother constantly reminded me of my failures. "Look at Derek," she said one evening, as I came home after a 12-hour shift, hands black with machine oil. "He has a career, a proper family. Why can't you be like him, Ron?" I bowed my head, silent. Derek was their pride and joy. An insurance company in Indianapolis, a beautiful wife, a nice house. To my parents, he was success. I was just a failed factory worker dragging along a young child. I didn't envy Derek, he was my brother, and I was glad for him. But every comparison felt like another stab to the heart. I wanted to scream that I was trying my best, that I didn't choose to be abandoned, to lose my home, to come back here like a loser with my daughter. But I stayed quiet, holding Cameron close, whispering, "I'll make it, kid." My childhood room, with its faded memories, became the place where I silently swallowed my pain, where I held my daughter each night and prayed for a way out. Things got worse when Derek's wife, Laura, gave birth to twins. The two babies arrived like a whirlwind, drawing all my parents' attention. The house filled with laughter and chatter. Toys, diapers, cute clothes for Derek's kids. Every weekend, Derek and Laura brought the twins over, and the house buzzed like a happy family, except for me and Cameron. Derek's room became the headquarters for the grandkids, while my room, my childhood room, was treated like a temporary burden. The favoritism was agonizing. My mother would hold Derek's twins, beaming, whispering sweet words. Cameron, her own granddaughter, got only a passing glance, or a scolding when she cried. Cameron's growing fast, but she's too noisy, my mother said coldly one night when Cameron was fussy from teething. You need to teach her to behave, Ron. We need rest to take care of Derek's kids. I wanted to shout that Cameron was her granddaughter too, that she needed love. But it was pointless. My parents poured all their affection into Derek's family, as if they were the real family, while Cameron and I were just temporary intruders, unworthy of priority. My father was more direct. One evening, he called me into the living room. Ron, he said, his voice stern. You've been here long enough. We can't keep supporting you and Cameron forever. Derek needs us more. He's got 2 kids, big responsibilities, and when they visit, we need space for them to be comfortable. You need to figure things out. I stood there, stunned, as if slapped. Dad, I pleaded, trying to keep my voice steady. I'm doing my best. I work all day. I pay for expenses. I just need a little more time. For Cameron's sake. But he just shook his head. You're a grown man, Ron. A man stands on his own 2 feet. We can't carry any more burdens, especially when Derek and his kids need us. The word burden pierced my heart like a dagger. To my parents, Cameron and I weren't family. We were a burden. They were willing to keep a room ready for Derek's visits, but I, their eldest son, in my own childhood room, was being pushed out onto the street. The tension grew thicker. Every cry from Cameron, every accident, became an excuse for my mother to complain. That kid's too loud, Ron. You need to find somewhere else. Derek and Laura are coming soon, and we need to prepare the house for them. I tried to explain I was saving, that I just needed more time. But she wouldn't listen. Derek never caused this kind of trouble, she'd say, and I knew in her eyes, I'd never measure up to my brother. The fateful day came abruptly. One morning, as I was getting ready for work, my father stood at the door of my room, his eyes cold. Ron, he said, you need to move out. We need this room to fix up for Derek's kids. You have 2 weeks. I stood there holding Cameron, feeling the ground collapse beneath me. 2 weeks? I repeated, my voice trembling. Dad, where am I supposed to go? How are Cameron and I supposed to live? That's your problem, he replied, then turned away without a single glance back. My mother stood in the corner, silent, her eyes saying it all. She agreed. Her eldest son no longer had a place in this house. I went back to the room, sat on the bed, and held Cameron close. She babbled, clutching my shirt, sensing my pain. I looked around my childhood room, its walls, once witnesses to my dreams, now just a place of temporary humiliation. I'd lost everything. My wife, my home, and now my own family. I didn't know where I'd go or what I'd do. But one thing was clear, I had to protect Cameron, no matter the cost. The 2 weeks passed like a nightmare. I spent every spare moment searching for a place to live, scouring newspapers, asking old factory friends. The money from selling the house wasn't much, but it was enough to rent a cheap, run-down apartment on the outskirts of town. A dilapidated building with stained walls and a musty smell. The landlord, a gaunt old man named Frank, eyed me and Cameron suspiciously. No noise and pay on time, he rasped. I nodded, signing the lease with trembling hands, and moved in with our few belongings: a foldable bed, Cameron's crib, a small gas stove. The apartment was a single room with a shared bathroom. But at least it was ours. For now, I thought, I can make it work. My factory wages were steady, though tight. I'd work harder, save every penny for rent, Cameron's milk, and simple food like cold-cut sandwiches. "We'll be okay, kid," I whispered to Cameron each night. But reality was harsher than I'd imagined. Living costs were higher than expected. Utilities, gas, diapers. My savings dwindled like water slipping through my fingers. I cut back on everything, ate less, turned off lights early, but it still wasn't enough. By the end of each month, I stared at piling bills, my heart tightening with worry. The biggest problem was Cameron. She was almost a year old now, active, needing constant care. Back at my parents' house, a kind neighbor had helped. Here, I knew no one I could trust. The nearest daycare charged double my weekly wage. Not enough money, I muttered, staring at a flyer. I couldn't leave her alone. She was too small, too fragile. So, I made a desperate choice. I'd bring Cameron to work. It was a last resort, but I had no other option. That morning, I carried her to the steel factory, tucked into an old backpack. The roar of machinery, the acrid smell, no place for a child. I hid Cameron in a corner of the break room, inside a cardboard box lined with a blanket, praying she'd stay quiet. "Daddy's going to work. Be good, okay?" I whispered, my heart pounding with fear of getting caught. My coworkers gave me odd looks but said nothing, maybe out of pity. I worked like a madman, darting between the production line and the break room to check on her, feeding her milk when she fussed. But I couldn't hide her forever. Cameron started crying, her wails cutting through the noise of the machines. The foreman, Mike, a burly man with a perpetually sour face, called me into his office. "Ron, are you out of your mind?" he bellowed, pointing at Cameron, who was now crying in my arms. "This is a factory, not a daycare. I've already warned you about your slipping performance." I bowed my head, my voice shaking. "I'm sorry, boss, but I have no one to watch her. My wife left. My family won't help. Just this once, I promise I'll." But Mike shook his head. "No. Just this once, you're fired. Grab your stuff and get out." I stood there, frozen. The world had collapsed. The job, the only thing keeping me afloat, was gone. I left the factory with Cameron in my arms, tears streaming down my face, mixing with sweat. "I'm sorry, kid," I whispered, but she just looked at me with innocent eyes, unaware of it all. Losing my job was a death blow. I wandered the town, applying everywhere: grocery stores, auto shops, even fast food joints. But my resume wasn't impressive, just a 31-year-old factory worker with no degree, now burdened with a young child. "We need full-time workers with no distractions," one manager said, glancing at Cameron in my arms. "Sorry, but no." I tried place after place, but the answer was always the same: rejection. Each door that shut made me feel smaller, more useless. The meager unemployment benefits barely lasted a few weeks. The bills kept coming. I used up my last savings to pay rent, but eventually, I couldn't keep up. One rainy afternoon, Frank, the landlord, knocked on my door. "Ron, you're 2 months behind," he said coldly, without a shred of sympathy. "Move out. I need to rent to someone else." I begged him. "Mr. Frank, please give me more time. I'm looking for work. I'll pay." But he shook his head and walked away. The next day, our belongings were tossed onto the sidewalk. I stood in the rain, holding Cameron under my worn-out jacket, watching the apartment, the last place we called home, locked shut. There was nowhere left to go. I called my parents one last time, my voice breaking with desperation. "Dad, please. I just need a place to stay." Cameron soaked. I don't know what to do. But my father's voice was dry over the phone. Ron, we can't. Derek and Laura are coming with the twins. We have to take care of them. Figure it out, son. The call ended. My world went dark. They refused. Because of Derek. Always Derek. I held Cameron, wandering in the rain, my heart shattered. We were officially homeless. That first night, we took shelter under a highway bridge where other drifters gathered. Rain pattered overhead, and the wind cut through like ice. I wrapped Cameron in an old blanket, holding her close to keep her warm. She cried from hunger, from cold, and all I could do was whisper, "Daddy's here, kid." The next morning, I went to the local church where they handed out free food. A kind old woman gave me a box of milk and bread, her eyes full of pity. Take this, son. God will watch over you and your girl. I took it, tears streaming down, feeling a flicker of warmth from a stranger for the first time. Under the bridge, we survived day to day. I learned to get food from soup kitchens where other homeless people shared their stories, lost jobs, lost homes, lost everything, just like me. They didn't judge, didn't play favorites. An old man named Joe, a former mechanic, gave me an old tent and taught me how to start a fire for warmth. Down here, everyone's struggling, but we help each other, he said, clapping my shoulder. A woman named Maria, also raising a young child, gave Cameron some hand-me-down clothes and watched her when I went job hunting. They, the people at the bottom of society, showed me more humanity than my own family. Unlike my parents, they shared without expecting anything, listened without comparing. Under the bridge, in those freezing nights, I learned that true kindness comes from the most unexpected places. Cameron, though young, seemed to feel it too. She smiled more when playing with the other kids under the bridge. But this life wasn't easy. Every night I lay awake, worrying about the future. Cameron started getting sick from the cold, and I had to beg at a free clinic for a doctor to see her. She'll be okay, but she needs a warmer place, they said. I nodded, but I knew we had nowhere to go. I kept looking for work, but with my ragged clothes and the smell of campfire smoke clinging to me, no one would hire me. I struggled, went hungry. But for Cameron, I didn't give up. She was my only light, the reason I kept breathing, kept fighting. Then one evening, a storm rolled in. Rain poured down in sheets, fierce winds shook the tent. Water seeped through the ground, soaking the blankets. I huddled with Cameron in a corner, using my jacket to shield her, but droplets still fell. She wailed, her cries blending with the booming thunder. "Shoo, it's okay. Daddy's here," I soothed, my heart pounding with worry. Joe and Maria had gone to find shelter elsewhere, leaving us alone under the dark bridge. I thought it was the worst night of my life, cold, hungry, and utterly hopeless. I prayed silently, though I barely believed in God anymore. "Please, give us a way out." Suddenly, through the torrential rain, I saw a shadowy figure approaching. An old man, tall but slightly stooped, dressed in an expensive black suit, holding an umbrella against the storm. He stopped in front of our tent, his eyes cutting through the darkness, settling on me and Cameron. I held her tighter, my protective instincts flaring. Under this bridge, a stranger could be anyone. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice hoarse from the cold, struggling to sit up and shield her. The old man didn't answer right away. He folded his umbrella and crouched down, his wrinkled face lit by sharp eyes, as if studying something precious that had been lost. "I'm Philip," he said, his voice warm and steady, a stark contrast to the storm raging outside. "I'm your grandfather, Ronald." I froze. The word grandfather echoed in my head like thunder. My whole life, my father, Kenneth, had told me my grandfather died when I was young. "A car accident," he'd said, and we never spoke of it again. No photos, no mementos, just a void in our family story. "What? What did you say?" I stammered, my voice trembling. "My grandfather's dead." My dad said. So, who are you really? How do you know my name? Philip gave a sad smile, his eyes glistening under the faint glow of a streetlight. I didn't die, Ronald. Your father, Kenneth, lied. He took all my money, abandoned me and your grandmother, then spread that story to cover it up. I've been looking for you for a long time through a private investigator. I know everything about Melissa, the divorce, what you're going through. He paused, looking at Cameron, sobbing in my arms. And this little girl, my great-granddaughter. Don't let her stay in this cold. Come with me. I want to take care of you both. To make up for what you've lost. I stared at the old man, my mind reeling. Doubt surged. Was this a cruel trick? A con man preying on desperate people like me? But as I looked closer, I saw an eerie resemblance, sharp blue eyes like my father's, a crooked smile I vaguely recalled from hazy dreams. And his voice, warm, sincere, not like a liar's. The rain kept falling, the wind howled, and Cameron cried louder from the cold. I had nothing left to lose. No home, no job, no family. If he was a bad person, could things possibly get worse than this? But if he was telling the truth, maybe this was the way out, the glimmer of hope for Cameron. I looked at my daughter, her cheeks flushed from crying, and my heart twisted. All right, I said, my voice choked. I'll go with you. But if you're lying, I won't forgive you. Not for my daughter's sake. Philip nodded, standing and holding his umbrella over us. You won't regret this, Ronald. Come on, my car's nearby. I picked up Cameron and followed him through the rain, my steps heavy with exhaustion and doubt. But deep inside, a faint spark of hope flickered. Maybe, just maybe, fate was finally smiling on us. We stepped out from under the bridge, the rain still pattering on Philip's umbrella. His car, a sleek black limousine with a uniformed driver waiting, stood not far off, its headlights cutting through the rain like a beacon. I hesitated for a second, glancing back at the soggy tent now torn apart by the wind. Then I climbed into the car. Inside, it was warm, the leather seats soft, and a child's car seat was already installed. Philip sat across from me, giving a faint smile when he saw my surprise. I came prepared, he said, his voice warm. She needs to be safe. I held Cameron closer. She'd stopped crying, soothed by the sudden warmth. I stared out the window as the car pulled away. We left Indiana, heading for Florida. A long journey, but Philip had arranged a private plane from a nearby airport. I didn't ask much. My exhausted mind focused only on keeping Cameron warm. During the flight, I drifted into sleep. The first time in months I wasn't jolted awake by cold winds or passing traffic. When we landed in Tampa, the sky was bright. Another car waited, taking us to the city's outskirts. The scenery changed from bustling streets to tree-lined roads, then to a gated community with high fences and an imposing iron gate. The car stopped in front of a sprawling mansion, like something out of a magazine, a two-story cream-colored building with red-tiled roofs, surrounded by lush green gardens and a shimmering pool under the Florida sun. I stood there, holding Cameron, my jaw dropping in awe. This is your house?" I stammered. Philip smiled, placing a hand on my shoulder. "Our house, Ronald. Come inside. You and your daughter need rest." Stepping into the mansion felt like entering another world. The grand foyer had marble floors, a sparkling crystal chandelier, and the faint scent of fresh flowers from a large vase. A middle-aged woman in a maid's uniform greeted us with a smile. "Welcome, sir, and welcome, Ronald, and little Cameron," she said as if she'd known us forever. Philip introduced her. "This is Elena, the housekeeper. Over there is Luis, the chef, and security's at the gate. They'll take care of everything." I nodded, still dazed. Philip led us upstairs to a spacious guest room with a king-sized bed, a private bathroom, and a corner filled with brand-new toys for kids. "This is for you and Cameron," he said. I had it ready. Later, Philip called a private doctor. Dr. Ramirez arrived within half an hour, carrying a full medical kit. He examined Cameron first, checking her temperature, listening to her lungs, prescribing medicine for her cough. She has a mild cold, but she'll be fine with proper care, he said, then turned to me. I sat there as he checked me over, high blood pressure from stress, malnourishment, and minor cuts from street life. You need rest and proper meals, he advised. Philip nodded and instructed the chef to prepare dinner. For the first time in months, I ate a real meal: hot chicken soup, fresh salad, toasted bread. Cameron got special formula milk, which she drank eagerly, her eyes brightening. That night, I lay on the soft bed, listening to Cameron's steady breathing in her crib beside me, and slept deeply. No nightmares, no worries. For the first time in years. The first days in the mansion passed like a dream. The house wasn't just grand, it was equipped with every comfort. A fruit orchard in the backyard, a gym, a library full of books. 24/7 security, daily cleaning by staff, 3 nutritious meals from the chef. Philip hired a nanny named Sophia, a gentle young woman who'd worked at a high-end daycare, to look after Cameron when I needed a break. You need time to recover, Philip said. Let Sophia handle her. I hesitated at first, but Sophia quickly proved trustworthy. She sang lullabies to Cameron, played with her, even taught me how to massage her to ease her cough. Cameron visibly improved. Her cheeks grew rosy, she smiled more, she started to crawl around the room. As for me, I took hot showers daily, ate proper meals, and felt my body coming back to life. Doubts lingered, but each day they faded under Philip's genuine care. We began settling into life here. Mornings, I woke to the smell of coffee from the kitchen, eating breakfast with Philip as he talked about Florida, the sea, and the warm sun. In the afternoons, I took Cameron to the garden, watching her giggle as she touched the leaves. At night, Sophia watched her while I relaxed, reading or just gazing at the stars. Philip didn't push, only gently asking about my life, about Melissa, about the hardships. There's no rush, he said. You need time. I started opening up, telling him about the steel factory, the betrayal, my parents, and Derek. Philip listened, his eyes heavy with sadness, as if sharing my pain. Then one evening, with Cameron asleep under Sophia's care, Philip invited me to the balcony, a spot overlooking the pool, shimmering under the lights. He poured 2 glasses of wine, sat in a leather chair, and said, "Ronald, it's time I told you the truth about the past, about why I found you." My heart raced, the air felt heavy, the faint sea breeze carrying a hint of salt. Philip stared into the distance, his voice low, recounting a painful story. Years ago, when I was younger, I had a happy family. Your grandmother, my wife, and our son, Kenneth, your father. I worked hard, saved money and bonds for our future. But Kenneth, he changed. He got hooked on gambling, racked up debts. One night, he took everything from the safe. Cash, bonds, even sold some family heirlooms, and vanished without a word. Your grandmother was devastated. She had a heart attack that night, and she was gone forever. Philip's voice broke. He took a sip of wine, his eyes red. I sat there, stunned, picturing it. My grandmother, whom I'd never known, dying from her own son's betrayal. I was nearly 50, penniless, heartbroken. I thought my life was over, but I didn't give up. I started over, a small job in real estate, borrowing from friends, working day and night. Over decades, I built Sunbay Properties, a coastal real estate company. From a tiny office in Tampa, I now have branches across Florida and beyond. I'm wealthy, but my heart was always empty. Losing my wife, my son, and not knowing what became of my grandson. He paused, looking at me. Recently, I hired investigators. They found Kenneth, then you, Ronald Hull, a factory worker in Indiana, divorced, kicked out by your parents, homeless under a bridge. I couldn't sit by. I had to find you. To make up for what you've suffered because of Kenneth's mistakes. I sat there, reeling as if struck by lightning. The truth lay bare. My father, Kenneth, wasn't a victim of fate, but a thief, a betrayer who caused my grandmother's death. My grandfather, whom I thought was dead, sat here, wealthy and full of regret. I was grateful. He'd saved us from hell, but also anguished by my parents' lies. Why did my dad do it? I asked, my voice choked. Philip shook his head. He was weak, Ronald. But you're different. You're strong, like I was. We sat in silence for a long time, the sea breeze whispering like a comfort. I looked at the pool, my heart a storm of emotions, but also relieved. At last, I had a real family, a real home for Cameron. The days that followed were spent processing that truth. During the day, I took Cameron to the garden, watching her crawl clumsily on the lush green lawn, giggling as she touched vibrant flowers. Sophia, the nanny, was always there, helping me care for her without making me feel inadequate. But at night, when the mansion fell silent, memories crashed over me like waves. I thought about my parents, about growing up in that old house in Indiana, where Dad always spoke of my late grandfather with feigned regret. Now I understood why he rarely talked about the past, why Mom dodged my questions about Grandma. They'd built a lie to hide their guilt, and I, their eldest son, had lived in its shadow without knowing. I was angry, but also sad. Sad for my grandmother, for Philip, and for myself. I called my parents once, but they didn't pick up. Maybe they thought I was calling to bother them, or beg. I didn't call again. I had Philip now, and Cameron. That was enough. Philip didn't push me to do anything right away. He gave me time to heal. But he also subtly hinted at the future. One morning, as we ate breakfast on the patio, toast, fresh fruit, steaming coffee, he looked at me and said, "Ronald, have you rested enough? Sunbay Properties could use someone like you. Start small. A sales position. No special treatment, just a chance to learn." I was taken aback, staring at him. "Grandpa, I'm just a factory worker. I don't know anything about real estate." Philip smiled, patting my shoulder. "You know about life, Ronald. That's something no school can teach. Give it a try. For Cameron, she needs a steady father." I hesitated, but agreed. I didn't want to live off his generosity forever. On my first day at the company, I wore a suit Philip bought me, feeling like I was in someone else's clothes. Sunbay Properties was in downtown Tampa, a modern glass building with a gleaming logo under the sun. The office buzzed with activity. Employees on phones, computers. Philip introduced me to the team but didn't highlight our connection, only saying I was a new hire. "Learn, Ronald," he whispered before leaving me to fend for myself. My role was modest, sitting at a small desk, calling potential clients, pitching coastal properties. A coworker, a guy named Kyle, guided me. "Just be genuine. Don't push clients like that." The first weeks were tough. I was used to manual labor, the roar of machines, sweating through my shirt. Now I had to learn to persuade, read contracts, handle numbers. Some calls ended abruptly with clients snapping, "Not interested. Goodbye." I came home exhausted but didn't quit. I remembered the days under the bridge, Cameron crying from cold. That was my drive. I studied hard, reading real estate books Philip left in the home library, asking Kyle about sales techniques, observing meetings. My honesty became an asset. Clients sensed sincerity when I explained the practical benefits of a beachfront home, no exaggeration. Slowly, I proved myself. A month later, I closed my first deal. A middle-aged couple bought a small condo in Clearwater. They said, "You explain things clearly, not like other salespeople." Kyle slapped my shoulder. "Nice work, Ron. You've got a knack for this." I smiled, but inside, I was grateful for my past struggles. Melissa's betrayal taught me patience. My parents' favoritism made me humble. Homelessness forged my resolve. I wasn't the timid factory worker anymore. I cared about my coworkers, listened to their issues, acted quickly. In a team project, when arguments broke out over client approaches, I suggested a middle ground. Think of clients like family. They need homes, not empty promises. The team agreed, and the project succeeded. The senior manager, Helen, a sharp woman in her 50s, praised me in a meeting. "Ronald, you've got leadership potential. Keep that integrity, and you'll go far." Time passed, and I climbed the ranks, feeling the change in myself. From a broken man, I became decisive, empathetic. The company grew with my ideas, like a program to help financially struggling clients, inspired by my own life. Helen and other managers praised me. "Ronald, you don't just sell, you change lives." Philip smiled whenever he heard reports, and I knew he was preparing me for something bigger. 3 years passed. It sounds long, but to me it was a whirlwind. I rose through the ranks, not because of family ties, but through sheer merit. Then came the turning point, not dramatic like a movie, but real and earned. In a boardroom meeting, Philip stood, his voice resonating in the glass-walled room. "I've watched Ronald for 3 years. No privileges, no favoritism. He started at the bottom and rose through ability, increasing revenue by 100%, expanding 4 branches, and building a company culture based on trust." The managers clapped. Helen smiled. "Ronald deserves this." Philip looked at me. "As of today, you're CEO of Sunbay Properties." I stood there stunned, my heart pounding. This wasn't a dream. It was real. I hugged Philip, whispering, "Thank you, Grandpa." He patted my shoulder. "You did this, Ronald." Being CEO wasn't easy. I sat in a large office with a vast ocean view, but the responsibilities were immense. Strategic decisions, investor meetings, crisis management. The company thrived. Record revenue, expansion into Georgia. Partners respected my reliability. Once, during a market downturn, I rejected a high-profit but risky deal. "We don't gamble with clients' futures," I said. They respected that, and more contracts followed. I stayed humble, eating lunch with employees, listening to ideas from the ground up. "I was once like you," I told the staff at a company meeting. "Let's build together." Cameron became my greatest joy. Now 5, she's bright, lively, and always asking about my work. "What do you do at the company, Daddy?" she asked, sitting on my lap at the dinner table. "I help people get nice homes like ours," I replied, kissing her forehead. She attends a private school, plays piano, and swims, things I never dreamed of as a kid. She's my drive. Every company decision, I think of her, of building a legacy. The media took notice. A local business magazine ran a feature, From Homeless Factory Worker to CEO, Ronald Hull's inspiring story. They interviewed me in my office, and I spoke honestly about Melissa, my parents, the bridge, and Philip. "Life taught me failure isn't the end," I said. The article went viral, and a local morning show invited me. Sitting on their sofa, I shared my story with a genuine smile. "From homeless to CEO, how'd you do it?" the host asked. I looked at the camera. "Thanks to my grandfather and never giving up. Everyone has a chance if they keep going." The interview boosted the company's fame. Clients poured in, and I received letters from people who'd struggled like me, thanking me for hope. But the past wouldn't let me rest. One afternoon, as I sat in my office reviewing revenue reports from the new Orlando branch, my phone rang. It was the receptionist. Her voice uneasy. "Ronald, there are 2 people in the lobby claiming to be your parents. They insist on seeing you now." I froze, gripping the phone tightly. My parents. Kenneth and Denise. After all these years. after they threw Cameron and me out like beggars. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. Let them wait in the lobby. I'm coming down. I stood, gazing out the window at the sparkling Tampa Bay under the sun, and told myself, I'm not that weak Ronald anymore. I walked down to the lobby where the crystal chandeliers gleamed off the polished marble floor. There they stood. My father in a tight, outdated suit. My mother in a worn wool coat, her eyes darting around as if appraising the building's worth. It was the first time I'd seen them since they kicked us out of their Indiana home years ago. My father looked at me, forcing an awkward smile. Ron, my boy, we saw you on TV. You've made it. We're so proud. My mother chimed in, her voice syrupy. Yes, Ron. We should reconnect. Family, right? We could help you manage all this. She waved her hand around the lobby as if staking a claim. I stood there, staring at them coldly, my heart no longer aching, just calm. Help? Like how you helped me and Cameron when you threw us out on the street? When I begged and you refused, all for Derek and his kids? My father's face paled. He stammered. Ron, those were tough times. You're rich now. We can let it go. We're your family. I shook my head, my voice steady. Family? You abandoned me when I needed you most. And now you come for a share? No way. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps echoed from the elevator. Philip appeared, tall in a sharp gray suit, his eyes cold as steel. He stopped beside me, staring straight at my parents, or rather, at his son, Kenneth. My father froze. His face ashen, as if he'd seen a ghost. Philip? Dad? You're alive? He stammered, stepping back. My mother clutched his arm, her eyes wide with horror. It's impossible. Kenneth said you died years ago. Philip gave a chilling smile. Yes, Kenneth said that to cover his crimes. But I'm alive, and I'm the chairman of Sunbay Properties, the company you're standing in. The lobby grew tense. A few employees and clients paused to watch, the air crackling with anticipation. Philip didn't hesitate, his voice ringing clear, laying the truth bare for all to hear. Kenneth, you stole everything, my money, my savings, and abandoned your mother and me. Your mother, Ronald's grandmother, died of a heart attack from the shock. You left me penniless at 50, then spread lies that I was dead to live guilt-free. And then you abandoned your own son and granddaughter, Ronald and Cameron, when they needed you most, kicking them out for Derek's sake. My father shook his head, his face flushed, trying to defend himself. It wasn't like that. I just borrowed it. Then things spiraled. You understand? But Philip pulled a stack of papers from his pocket. Investigator reports. Old receipts, even photos of the empty safe from years ago. Here's the proof, Kenneth. You can't deny it. And Denise, you knew everything but covered for him. My mother faltered, stammering. We didn't mean it, Ron. Say something. But I just stood there, looking at them. Two people who were once my parents, now just a painful memory. They couldn't argue. The evidence was undeniable. The lobby was silent, a few employees whispering. My parents lowered their heads, leaving in shame without another word. I watched them go, feeling no anger. Just release. Sometime later, Philip called me into his office. Ronald, it's time to settle things, he said, his voice calm but resolute. He had invited my father, Kenneth, and Derek to a company meeting under the pretense of business discussions. I knew it wasn't an ordinary meeting, but I didn't object. The day arrived, and Sunbay Properties' grand conference hall was packed with employees and senior managers. My father and Derek walked in, Derek in a flashy suit, exuding confidence as if he were there to claim a share, while my father kept his head down, avoiding eye contact. They sat in the front row, Derek whispering to Dad, "Guess Ron's ready to share the success." Philip took the stage, his voice booming through the microphone. "Today, I'm announcing my official will. I'm 80 years old, and Sunbay Properties needs a worthy successor." The room fell silent, all eyes on him. He looked at me and smiled. "Ronald Hull will inherit the majority of my estate and full control of the company. Not because of blood, but because he's proven his character and ability. From a sales associate to CEO, building this company stronger with integrity and hard work." The hall erupted in applause. Helen and my colleagues cheered. I stood, hugging Philip, my voice choked. "Thank you, Grandpa." He patted my shoulder. "You did this, Ronald." My father and Derek were cut out entirely. Not a cent, not a share. Derek's face paled, and he shot to his feet. "How can this be? I'm your grandson too." My father, trembling, pleaded in front of everyone. "Philip, Dad, please forgive me. Ron, talk to him. We're family." The room went quiet, all eyes on the scene. I stepped onto the stage, looking straight into my father's eyes. The man who once threw me and Cameron out. My voice was cold but steady. "The day you kicked me and Cameron out, I lost my father. The only person I respect now is my grandfather." My father sank into his chair, his face ashen. Derek, flushed with embarrassment, pulled him up, and they left in silence, under the whispering gazes of the staff, departing in shame, with no further excuses. I watched them go, my heart at peace. The past was finally closed. After that meeting, everything became clearer than ever. I returned to the mansion, holding Cameron close. Her warmth was a reminder that life still held beauty. Philip patted my shoulder, his voice warm. "You've done well, Ronald. Now it's time to live for the future." We ate dinner together, a true family meal, with Cameron's laughter echoing through the spacious room. She was growing up, her eyes bright and her smile radiant. No trace of those cold days under the bridge. I told her about her great-grandfather, about lessons from the past, and she listened, even if she didn't fully understand. One evening, when things had settled, I took Cameron to the company building's balcony, the highest point in Tampa, with a sweeping view of the city's twinkling lights under the night sky. The cool sea breeze carried the scent of salt and freedom. I held her in my arms, pointing out the towering buildings and bustling streets below. "Look, kid, that's our world," I whispered. Cameron giggled, waving as if greeting the lights. In that moment, I realized I'd come full circle, from the depths of despair, clutching my daughter under the rain, to this pinnacle of honor, standing tall as a man. I reflected on what I'd endured. Melissa's betrayal. My parents and Derek's coldness. The homeless nights under the bridge. And Philip's redemption. They were no longer wounds. They were lessons. The very foundation of what I'd achieved, a thriving company, a loving home, and a heart capable of profound love. I'm both a successful CEO leading Sunbay Properties to record revenues and relentless expansion, and a devoted father spending every weekend with Cameron, taking her to the beach, teaching her to swim, and telling her stories of the kind people under the bridge. She's growing up in a new family, filled with love. Philip as a gentle great-grandfather, Sophia as a caring aunt figure, and me, her dad, always there to protect her. We're no longer alone. The mansion is now alive with laughter, shared meals, and new memories. But deep down, I've learned a profound truth. Blood doesn't always make a family. My biological parents, despite sharing my blood, abandoned me when I needed them most. Yet, Philip, betrayed by his own son, came back to make amends. It's love, responsibility, and integrity that create a true legacy, the one I'll pass on to Cameron, so she grows up valuing those who truly stand by her. And if there's any advice from this journey, it's this: keep pushing forward, no matter how tough the odds. I once thought my life was over under that bridge, but I didn't give up. I took one step at a time. The future will always be bright if you keep moving forward, never quitting. Life may push you to the bottom, but you decide whether to stand up. For me, Cameron was my reason to rise. And now I stand here, at the top, ready for whatever comes next. What about you? Have you ever had to redefine what family means in your own life? Tell me your thoughts in the comments below. I really want to hear your stories.